Okay, guys, today I'm going to talk to you about pickling vegetables. This is the best recipe I have ever found to pickle any type of vegetable. You can literally do all these different types of vegetables with just one recipe. We're going to do a variety of things today. We're going to do a little bit of okra, some beets, eggs, carrots, stuffed peppers, regular peppers, gypsy peppers, pickles, you name it, we're going to do it today. So let me get right into it. So for each jar, you're going to want to put the jars through your dishwasher on the sanitize cycle. When they come out and they're dried off, you're going to fill each jar with half a teaspoon of dill seed, a clump of fresh dill, some crushed garlic, 2 to 3 bay leaves, some hot peppers. I'm sorry, half a teaspoon of hot peppers, a quarter teaspoon of yellow mustard seed, and then for the brine, you're going to do half a cup of kosher salt, half a cup of sugar, 2 quarts of water, and 1 quart of regular white vinegar. So you're going to fill up all your jars with each one of those ingredients. And then on the side, you're going to get a big pot out and you're going to fill up the pot with the brine, which is the liquid, the sugar, and the salt. So the water, the vinegar, the sugar, and the salt are all going to go into another pot. You're going to boil that and put that on the side and use it for a little bit later. So first things first, when you go ahead and start putting the vegetables in the jar, take your time and remember you eat with your eyes before anything else. So take your time and put the vegetables in there. Pack them in nice and tight because you don't want them to float, but put them in there so they look presentable, so they look nice. And you can see here I'm pickling okra, and if you've never tried pickled okra, it's probably my favorite thing to pickle. But definitely want to take your time and make it look pretty. Uh, you could do a variety of things. I like to do these pickles are a little bit bigger than I'd normally like to buy, but you could cut them in half. You could keep them whole. You could slice them. But whatever you do, just make sure that the jars are tightly packed and that they look appealing to the eye. And if they're not tightly packed, what'll happen is the vegetables will float to the top. And I'll show you a little tip at the end of the video. What I like to do so you don't have any problems with the vegetables floating. If they do float, they float, but this will absolutely help so they don't spoil. Another little tip here, if you're going to pickle carrots, which are delicious, cut them to the size of the jar before you put them in the jar so you don't have a bunch of odd shaped carrots trying to fit into a jar. Pack them in good and tight, and then the only difference is, so this is pickled beets. The only difference in the recipe is with pickled beets, I will normally add a stick of cinnamon. And don't ask me why. I somebody suggested it to me one time and I did it. And a stick of cinnamon with your pickled beets makes all the difference in the world. Unfortunately, this year, for whatever reason, I thought we had cinnamon sticks in the house and we did not. So I ended up putting in a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm not sure it's going to be enough, but it's going to be what it's going to be. So, but trust me on this one, add a stick of cinnamon to each one of your jars when you're doing pickled beets. It makes all the difference in the world. So I also do stuffed peppers, and basically I just make a regular cabbage salad, salt, pepper, vinegar, and olive oil, and I let it sit for about 20 minutes so it softens up. And then I stuff gypsy peppers. I stuff the cabbage salad in the gypsy peppers, and then stuff the stuffed peppers into the jar. And I could get about 6 peppers per jar. And remember, this is something in the winter time when you got a foot of snow on the ground and you really don't feel like running out to the store. This is great. You could throw some meat in the oven and braise it off and pull out the stuffed peppers and makes a quick salad, and it's delicious. Bell peppers, red bell peppers, one of my favorite things to put into the jar. I quarter them and then stuff them in nice and tight, and this is great with smoked meats, some nice, really good salty cheese, maybe a nice glass of red wine. Pretty good stuff. So a variety of things. Don't just do one vegetable. You want to have a variety of things ready to go in case yeah, it gives a little bit of variety, uh, makes things a little bit better. So these are some gypsy peppers, and I just halved them and I'm stuffing them in there nice and tight. Um, Gypsy peppers, typically I don't do too many hot peppers, but every once in a while I'll throw in some jalapeno or maybe a habanero into a couple jars, and surprisingly, it doesn't get too spicy. If it sits more than a couple months, then you're gonna really, especially with the habaneros, you're gonna start feeling it. So I did a little bit of cauliflower. I always do cauliflower. I core out the middle, and then you could just kind of break off each of the pieces. Cauliflower, carrots, and jalapenos are a classic combination. I did not buy any habaneros this, or I'm sorry, jalapenos this year. So I just went with the cauliflower, carrots, and sliced cucumbers, and it turned out really, really well. And once the brine goes into the jars, you're really going to need to let it sit for about 3 weeks. And at the end of the video, you'll see for the first week, I flip my jars upside down. That makes the pickle go all over the top of the vegetables. So here we are. I'm just wiping the tops of the jars before we start putting in the brine. You want to make sure that there's a good clean seal for the warm gum on the jar lid to seal to. And what I mean by the warm gum is I just put a little bit of beet juice into the eggs, and we'll see that in a minute. So here's the boiling pot that I got. This is a little kit that you can buy from Walmart. It's about 25 bucks, and it comes with the pot. You want to make sure that your jars are not touching the bottom of the boiling pot, otherwise they can crack. And here I am. I'm just pouring the brine into the jars. You could see the one with the a little bit of beet juice for the eggs. You want to pour it to about half an inch from the top of the jar, and then in the little orange pot, I've got the lids in lukewarm water. And what I'll do is here I'm just going to check to make sure there's no air bubbles. If there are, I just take a knife and dislodge the air bubble so it doesn't spoil the batch. And then you put the warm lids on top of the clean jars, and you're just going to take the ring and you want to give it a good hand tight turn. You don't want to over crank it because the jars can shatter in the boiling water, but you just want to give it a nice decent crank. And I go ahead and place the jars in the boiling water for about 10 minutes. You don't want to go any more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes, you definitely don't want to go less than 5 minutes. And because the brine is nice and warm, it works out. 10 minutes is pretty much perfect. So here's the finished product right out of the boiling water. You're going to let this sit overnight, and then you're going to check your jars and see if any of them haven't sealed properly. And here in that case, that is a jar that did not seal properly. So that now is going to go into the refrigerator. It's still good, it's just not going to seal properly. So now for the first week, I'm going to make sure that the jars are face down. And then the next 2 weeks, I put them right side back up. And after 3 weeks, they are ready for you guys to enjoy. Jars like this can last about, I'd say, a year, maybe even two. All right, guys, enjoy.